All right, what up, everybody? We're back with another spotlight. Thanks for joining us. Jason, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, another Regal Robot piece. This time the life size, I guess we can call that, right? Life size Wampa.
The Wampa.
Which great to pull up the image only because we want to differentiate from the 1-to-1 scale Wampa that they also released. So this one would be, I guess, in the same category as the Tauntaun, right?
Yep.
Something that you would hang on your wall. So a lot of interesting elements of this piece. Okay, so the Chewbacca is basically an open edition. Now there was a few
Yeah.
variations, right? They started off with the head, which was a signed edition. Then so many people were requesting that missed out on it. He said we got to differentiate it. We'll make the bust. That's now an open edition. You can pretty much order it at any time for the most part. I would assume.
Sure.
Now the Tauntaun as well. I think the Tauntaun is something that's still made. It's not limited to any specific number. This, however, which is a little bit more interesting, is limited to 50 pieces. And I don't
This
think
one's limited to 50 pieces?
Limited to 50 pieces.
Okay.
And unlike a maquette where you have legacy and non-legacy, right? Because this is a signature edition, I don't believe there's going to be an open edition non-signature. Now, if there is enough demand, anything's possible. So don't quote me to say that that's not the case. But
yeah, but this also isn't Chewbacca.
Correct.
I mean, come on, right? Like,
well, and also, I'm sorry, I don't mean to correct you. So you said this is a 1-to-1, like life-sized Wampa, and I thought it was larger than life-size, which is why they called it screen-sized.
Yeah, no, I was saying compared to the 1-to-1, it's not the prop replica. It's its own. It's its own piece. Like because they already released. They released the Wampa.
It's not the size of the maquette. Like
correct.
The puppet.
The puppet. Yeah, the puppet is the screen replica. This is a much larger representation of that. But what I think is interesting about this, where Chewbacca and Tauntaun are somewhat of open editions, this is limited to 50. And I think, I can say with confidence that it's about halfway sold out.
Yeah.
And at a price tag of $5,999, roughly $6K. I mean,
is it roughly $6K, Jason, or is it
$5,999.99?
All right, okay.
But again, there's a lot of work that goes into this. So perfect to put on a payment plan. Let's say you put this on a 6-month payment plan. Roughly, that's the turnaround time. Maybe sooner. But just like Chewbacca, you have FX grade hair, so this stuff is gonna look and feel like the real deal, just like you see in the movie.
For anyone wondering, though, like so Jason, you own Chewbacca, right?
Correct. Yep.
I have owned Chewbacca. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. So like all the hair work that the Regal Robot does is it's next level. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, and it's you can work with it. I mean, we even like played with it a little bit as with some humor because Chewbacca actually came with a pick. Right. And one of the things I always like to do is create like the Return of the Jedi look, where his hair's all tousled and sort of messy. Yeah. And at one point, I even did ESB where I had the headpiece from the Falcon, and I put it over Chewbacca's head, and I had it like that for about 5-6 months. The Rascal and then Rascalite. But yeah, there's so many amazing things you can do.
That's cool.
So yeah, again, this is literally handmade, hand painted, FX grade. I mean, the detail on this is phenomenal. It's next level, right? And then you get Howie Weed, who had a huge part in working with and working on the costume, in addition to, as you can see, performing in it, is on the signature plaque. And something about this I just find unique, that it's such a big, prominent statement piece, but it's limited, right? Because I think even at one point, and this is still something you could probably do, is you were able to order a Jawa, which was sort of made to order, if you will,
full size Jawa.
Full-size Jawa made to order. And I know it wasn't something that they necessarily advertised because of the type of materials and things that they had to get their hands on. But again, it wasn't like that was limited to X amount of pieces. This being limited to 50, I think is really interesting. And if you think about it, 6K is a lot, but where Chewbacca was 4,500, and you see what an amazing piece that is. What a beautiful display piece that is.
Yeah.
But this being, I take this with a grain of salt when I say only $1,500 more, because $1,500 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But for only $1,500 more in regards to a collectible or your collection, you're getting a piece that's just like, I mean, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely
And
phenomenal.
they
I mean, look,
probably they probably have
It's
longer
good.
terms than 6 months too for that payment plan.
Yeah, I'm sure you can go
I
a year. Yeah,
would think
you
so.
can pretty much be pretty open to the payment plan. I think with partially, there's you can choose multiple terms. It's not like locked into a specific tier.
Well, and I mean, look at the size of this thing. I mean, it's 32 inches, tall. I mean, that's decent. That's a good size. I mean, you definitely have to have a good space picked out for something like this, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how heavy this thing is, Jason? Do you know?
All right. So that's a good thing. I can't imagine it being too heavy.
Yeah.
Because Chewbacca isn't very heavy, despite
Right.
how big he is. The Tauntaun, even though I don't own a Tauntaun, I know it's got some weight, but still manageable. It's not like
Yeah.
it takes 2 or 3 pieces. So visually, it gives you the idea that like, oh, I need 3 people to lift this thing. You probably want 2 just to get it right when you're
Yeah,
setting
sure.
it up. But overall, I think it's something that can be lifted by
Yeah.
one individual.
And mounted on a wall somewhere or something.
And yeah, they're not nearly anywhere near as fragile as people would think. They're really well made. But I love the detail too with like what's it called, the stressing of like the snow and the ice and the fur. And I know it's hard to capture like with these images. It kind of washes out a little bit. And he's not like a pure white. There's different tones of
Right.
white, off white, kind of yellowed white, which
Yeah.
is what you want to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the little elements, and you can kind of see there. Anybody who takes wants to pause it or take a screen grab and blow it up or even visit the site, you can see little elements of ice and snow sort of mixed in his hair, just like you would if you had your pet playing outside in the snow,
Yeah, that's really cool. The details, especially in this shot, is crazy.
Yeah, this is
the mouth open, like it just looks really good. And is that hair like waxed, Jason?
I think the areas that have the what's it called, the snow and ice. I don't know if it's waxy. That I'm not sure of.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I'm also sure too, though, that like if you tussle your hands through it, it's not like it's gonna fall out like dandruff. I mean, it's
no.
probably bound to it, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's got like a faux ice. So I'm imagining just like you would with models, like if you're building an AT-AT or an ATST, it's that same sort of similar material. So yeah, it holds pretty well. But
this is a good picture talking about the difference between the bust.
Yeah, this is apples and oranges, right?
Yeah, the replica.
The one thing I do remember is that the ears were purposely not included in the screen use, like the wall bust, because they would have sat so far back on the head that they would have had to like the face would be quite forward, if that makes sense.
You wouldn't be able to like mount it.
Well, it's more of like I think it's like the eye line would have been different if they had included the ears, like so that the ears were not. I think so. If it's like an invisible plane at the back of the head, the ears are probably like a few inches into the wall. So I think included the ears, he would have been looking down quite a bit. And I think that was like a really good aesthetic choice to just not include them for the sake of just the profile of like how he sits on the wall.
Yeah.
But that, besides seeing the puppet next to it, I was like looking at my movie posters. I'm like, that's 4 inches shorter than a movie poster.
No, it's crazy. Know what I love about this? I know a lot of people are going to utilize it by putting it on the wall, but my style of displaying, right? I think this would also look great. I mean, it would be a large size pedestal, but a nice black pedestal, fill a case over it, and that just mounted inside.
Yeah.
I think that'd be phenomenal.
On its own like stand, on its own, like almost like they did with the Chewbacca head.
Yeah.
They did stand for it, yeah.
And then having the proper lighting. I mean, there's a lot you can do with this one just because of the style of it. And there's a great interview called "The Man Inside" with Howie Weed, the gentleman who signed the signature plaque. Because again, wearing the costume, but also having participated in working on the costume, you're getting the best of both worlds, right? Usually you either get the sculptor, artist, and or the actor. You don't get and or at the same time, but.
See, this is interesting. This is interesting. I've never thought about like, what do you do with the plaque when you mount something on a wall like this? That's interesting, right? I mean, you'd have to,
Yeah,
you would
I
have
like
to.
that.
It's cool. It's just you would have to figure out how to mount both together somehow. I guess you could. I mean, you could put it below it if it was sitting on something. If it was close enough, but
I think
yeah,
that looks nice, just like
yeah,
that.
it's nice. It's cool.
I mean, you could again. There's so many ways of doing this, right? Even like a taxidermist, someone who hunts, and you can get sort of a, you know, the backboard with the plaque below it. I mean, there's a lot you could do with
Jeez,
this.
they really want you to know this is 32 inches tall, don't they? Holy shit.
Well, because I think
Well,
I
cool.
think the images are deceiving. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. 32 inches tall. 32 inches. 32. Yeah.
Well, look when the first images started surfacing about the Wampa replica. It
Yeah.
looked ginormous, and then they put it next to the Kenner figures, and you realize it's
Mhm.
they're very manageable in a collection, very easily displayable.
Ooh, look at that detail. That's crazy.
And one thing I love, and I sometimes see this kind of like
That looks so
borderline fracture in the community sometimes, where the fact that these are all handmade and hand painted, you're getting that variation between one and the other. Like my Chewy didn't look like your Chewy,
Yeah, sure.
but they looked exactly like, but they didn't. Right?
Right.
You get those variations that it's handmade,
Yep.
so you're getting that quality.
Well,
Some people,
and especially with Chewy, people like to make Chewy with his hair look differently depending on
Mhm.
what kind of aesthetic
Yeah.
you like for Chewy, right? So
like I said, I always did the Return of the Jedi tousled, messy kind of look, and it works. You don't have to stick with one or the other because the way it's made, it works.
you do have to Jason's kid is probably here. You do have to be somewhat not concerned, but there is a thing that, like with the Chewy bust, I would find like random Chewy hairs like
Mhm.
every now and then that I'd have to clean up. It doesn't fall out like crazy. It just
Mhm.
every now and then something will fall out. So you'd have to keep that in mind. But this stuff, I mean, with the ice in the hair and all the I don't know, it looks really good. It looks really good.
Does.
It's too big for my collection. It's too crazy. I just couldn't
Right.
do it. But awesome. None of us are getting this, right? Correct? Is it just kind of
Not this one.
too much?
I have the other Wampa
Right.
coming in, but this one I think. See, it's not even the size. I think that you have to have the right space.
You do. Yeah.
It's also quite a menacing piece, right? So
Yep.
I don't necessarily have. I mean, I have an allocated area where my collection sits,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I move my things around a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think this needs a dedicated space. And it's so unique that like it's one of those situations where if it's sitting by itself, which it can do, it'll stand out in a specific way. But if it's amongst other collectibles, it's a good thing. But I think if you have a dedicated or allocated space for it, it's perfect. And
Yeah,
I'm really not surprised to find out that they're more than halfway sold out through these. Like
No, I know.
that wasn't like jarring to me in any way. I was just like, all right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a beautiful piece. I mean, look, it makes sense that they're only making 50 because of the size of the thing and then just like you said, the unique piece that it is. But it's a beautifully handcrafted collectible. Hey, it's beautiful. It really is. So
Mhm.
congrats, Regal Robot, for coming out with another really cool bust. And man,
Yeah,
I
congrats on
tell you
everybody
what,
that picked them up.
yeah, and I tell you what, they're if they get at some point making an Ewok version of something like this, it's game
I
time.
think we're getting there. We're getting there.
It's game time, and I'll just like shove it into my collection. I'll figure out where to put it. Because honestly, you've seen my collection room. It's small, so it's just hard to put something of any like large size in it. Like the Chewy bust, it was just too big. So, but man, I'd make room for an Ewok. So, all right, guys. I think that's it for this one. We will. Everyone good? Anything else you want to talk?
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Good. Okay. Okay. We'll see you on the next one. See you guys.